deception, deceitfulness, hiding, cheating, guile, guilefulness, avoiding, closing up completely, screening perfectly, unrevealing, undisclosing, and suppressing particularly this sinful act is called deception. The person in whom this deception has been put away is said to be undeceiving. What sort of person is scrupulous? What then is scruple? That which is being scrupulous where one should be, the being scrupulous as to doing a sinful and immoral act, this is said to be scruple. A person who is possessed of scruple like this is said to be scrupulous. What sort of person is discreet? What then is discretion? Being discreet where one ought to be, discretion as to doing a sinful and immoral act, this is said to be discretion. A person who is possessed of discretion like this is said to be a discreet person. What sort of person is obedient? What then is obedience? Obedience. Obeying. The habit of obeying. Not taking up a hostile attitude, not persisting in antagonism, respecting, respect, reverence, subordination, this is said to be obedience when the observance of duties is spoken of. A person who is possessed of such obedience is said to be an obedient person. What sort of person is the associate of the good? What then is association with the good? Serving, respecting, revering, honoring, love, reverence, friendship for those people who are faithful, virtuous, learned, possessed of devotion and candor, this is said to be meant by association with the good. A person who has such an association with the good is said to be an associate of the good. What sort of person is guarded as to the sense doors? What then is guarding the sense doors? Here a certain person sees an object with the eye, but is not enamored of its form and beauty. And whereas if he lives with his sense of sight unrestrained, the sinful and wicked mental conditions, viz. covetousness and dejection, will flow in, he strives after its restraint, he guards the sense of sight and exercises control over the faculty of sight. He hears a sound with his ears, smells an odor with his nose, tastes with his tongue, feels an external object with his body, apprehends a mental phenomenon with his mind, but is not enamored of its form and beauty, whereas if he lives unrestrained as to the faculty of mind, the sinful and wicked mental conditions, viz. covetousness and dejection, will flow in, he strives after its restraint, guards the faculty of mind and exercises control over it. That which is guarding, restraining, protecting, and controlling of these six faculties, this is said to be guarding the sense doors. One who has such a vigilance over the sense doors is said to be guarded as to his sense doors. What sort of person is moderate as to food? What then is moderation in food? Here somebody wisely thinking takes food not for the sake of amusement, not for pride, not for decoration, not for ornamentation, so far as it is necessary for the preservation and keeping up of the body and for the sake of relieving the distress of hunger, helping the cause of a holy life. Thus I shall put an end to my past feelings and shall not give occasion to new feelings. Thus shall come to me sustenance, purity, and peaceful life. That which is contentment, moderation, thoughtfulness as to food, this is said to be moderation in food. A person possessing such temperance is said to be moderate as to food. What sort of person is alert? What then is mindfulness? The mindfulness which is remembering. Which is remembrance. Recollection, retentiveness, non-forgetting, non-disorder of memory, mindfulness, a faculty called mindfulness, the power called mindfulness, and perfect mindfulness, this is said to be mindfulness. A person who possesses mindfulness like this is said to be an alert person. What sort of person understands? What is understanding? That which is knowledge, knowing, discrimination, investigation of the truth, observing, remarking, and discernment, erudition, expertness, adroitness, superior thinking, examination, reason, intellect that leads, introspection, mindfulness, goad, insight, The faculty of insight. The power of insight. Weapon of insight. Palace of insight, light of insight, brightness of insight, splendor of insight, jewel of insight, disillusionment, investigation into the truth, perfect vision. This is said to be mindfulness. A person who is possessed of such understanding understands. What sort of person is an observer of moral law? What then is observance of moral law? Non-transgression with regard to body and to speech, and with regard to both this is said to be observance of moral law. All restraints under moral law are its observance. Anyone equipped with this observance of moral law is said to be the observer of moral law. What sort of person is the upholder of right view? What is then the upholding of right view? There is charity, in sacrificial rites, and sacrificial offerings. There is fruit, and there is result of good and bad deeds done. There exists this world, there is also the next world, there is mother and there is father, and there are those beings who are born without their union. There are true recluses and Brahmins in this world who have attained peace of mind and are acting their best. And who, having personally known and realized what this world is as well as the next, make known to others knowledge and such knowing, etc. Absence of ignorance, discernment of the truth, right vision. This is said to be upholding of right views. All right views are classed under right views. A person who is endowed with this upholding of right views is said to be the upholder of right views. Which two persons are rare in this world? He who does good first and he who recognizes it. These two persons are rare in this world. Which two persons are hard to satisfy? He who stores up whatever he gets and he who gives away whatever he gets. These two persons are hard to satisfy. Which two persons are easily satisfied? He who does not store up whatever he gets and he who does not give away whatever he gets. These two persons are easily satisfied. Of which two persons do the sins increase? He who doubts where he should not and he who does not disbelieve where he ought to. Of these two persons the sins go on increasing. Of which two persons do the sins not increase? He who does not doubt where it is not proper to doubt and he who doubts where he ought to do so. Of these two persons the sins do not increase. What sort of person is one having low inclination? Here is a person who, himself morally wicked and evil by nature, serves, follows, and worships another person who is also wicked and of evil disposition. This is said to be a person having low inclination. What sort of person is one having good inclination? Here a certain person who, morally good and of virtuous habits, serves, follows, and reveres another person of the same nature. He is said to be a person having good inclination. What sort of person is the gratified? Those who are enlightened for themselves and those of the disciples of the Tathagata, who are Aryants, are the gratified. The perfectly enlightened one is both gratified and a gratifier. Here ends the specification of grouping by two. Ch originally spoken by Gautam Buddha in Pali language around BC. Pali versions. Pali English version and Pali Devanagari version adapted from translation into English by Bimala Charan Law, Chapter 3. Division of human types by 3. What sort of person is hopeless? Here a certain person who is immoral and is of evil disposition, who is of impure habits and who is the doer of deeds concealed, professes to be a samana, although he is not one. Being unchanged asked, he professes to live the holy life. Is corrupt within, is filled with desire, and is one in whom foulness has accumulated, and when he hears thus, a monk of such and such a name, on the dissolution of sinful tendencies, lives in the attainment of emancipation by way of insight and by means of higher wisdom, of emancipation of thought which is devoid of sinful tendencies. After he has by himself known and realized them in this life, he does not think thus, when shall I too on the dissolution of sinful tendencies live, etc. Such a person is said to be a hopeless person. What sort of person is hopeful? Here a certain person who is moral and is of good disposition happens to learn that such and such a monk, on the dissolution of sinful tendencies, lives in the attainment of emancipation by way of insight and of emancipation of thought which is devoid of the sinful tendencies. after he has by himself known and realized them by means of higher wisdom in this life. He thereupon thinks, when shall I too on the dissolution, etc. Such a person is said to be hopeful. What sort of person is he who has lost hope? Here a certain person, having known and realized by himself in this life, by means of higher wisdom, the emancipation that comes through insight and emancipation of thought, which is the being rid of evil tendencies, comes to learn that a bhikkhu of such and such a name lives in this world. Having personally come to know and realize, by means of higher knowledge, the emancipation that comes through insight and emancipation ot thought, which is the being rid of evil tendencies, he thereupon does not think thus, when shall I too live, etc. To what is this due? Because that aspiration to attain emancipation, which he entertained when he was still unemancipated, has been stilled. Such a man is said to be one who has lost desire. Who are the three persons that may be likened to a sick person? There are three kinds of sick persons. Here there is some sick person who, whether or not he gets proper diet or good medicines or an able nurse, fails to recover from his illness. Here again there is some sick person who, whether or not he gets proper diet or good medicines or an able nurse, recovers from his illness. Here again there is some sick person who, getting proper diet or good medicines or an able nurse, recovers from his illness but not without getting those things. For the last class of patients i.e. those who can recover from a disease if they get proper diet or good medicines or an able nurse, but not without getting them, the Blessed One has prescribed diet or medicine or an able nurse for them. Other patients are to be attended to because of this class of patients. Like these three sick persons there dwell in this world three types of persons. Which three? Here a certain person, whether or not he sees the Tathagata and whether or not he listens to the doctrine and the discipline thereof as expounded by the Tathagata, does not enter upon the accepted order in things that are good. Here again a certain person, whether or not he sees the Tathagata with his own eyes and whether or not he hears the doctrine and the discipline thereof as expounded by the Tathagata, enters upon the accepted order in things that are good. Here again another person only when he is able to see the Tathagata and to listen to the doctrine and the discipline thereof as expounded by the Tathagata enters upon the accepted order in things that are good, but not otherwise. In the case of the person of the last type, namely, one who enters upon the accepted order in things that are good only when he comes to see the Tathagata and hears the doctrine and discipline imparted by him, but not otherwise, for him has the Blessed One prescribed religious discourse, and because of this person the doctrine should be imparted to others. These are the three men in this world who are comparable to sick men. What sort of person is an eyewitness? Here a person goes on himself experiencing the 8 stages of emancipation and, having seen them through insight, some of his sinful